Welcome to MindTier Learning. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to MindTier Learning, and follow along carefully because these ideas appear again and again in GCSE Maths. In today's GCSE Maths lesson, we're going to build the foundations of algebra by learning about terms, expressions, variables, constants, and coefficients. Algebra can sometimes feel confusing because it uses letters instead of just numbers. But by the end of this lesson, you'll see that algebra is really just a clear shorthand for describing unknown values. In this lesson, we are going to focus on 4 key goals. First, we will define variables, constants, and coefficients. Second, we will learn how to identify individual terms inside algebraic expressions. Third, we will understand the difference between a term and an expression. Finally, we will practice the standard rules mathematicians use when writing algebra. These skills are important because they help you read algebra correctly before you try to simplify, expand, factorize, or solve anything. Let's begin with the key vocabulary. A variable is a symbol, usually a letter, that represents a value that can change. For example, in algebra, the letter X might stand for an unknown number. A constant is a fixed number. It does not change. For example, 5, 10, or -3 are constants. A coefficient is the number that multiplies a variable. So in 4x, the coefficient is 4 because it tells us we have 4 lots of x. An expression is a group of terms joined by operations like addition or subtraction, but it does not have an equal sign. Imagine you have a mystery box. You know there are sweets inside, but you do not know how many. Instead of writing the unknown number of sweets in the box every time, we can simply call it x. So x represents the unknown number of sweets. Now imagine we add 5 more sweets. We can write this as x plus 5. This is what algebra does. It gives us a shorter way to describe situations where some information is unknown or can change. So, algebra is not just random letters. It is a useful language for describing patterns, quantities, and missing information. A term is one building block of algebra. A term can be a number by itself, like 7. It can be a variable by itself, like x. Or it can be a number and variable multiplied together, like 4x. In 4x, we mean 4 times x. But in algebra, we usually leave out the multiplication sign. Instead of writing 4 times x, we simply write 4x. This is one of the first important algebra rules. When a number is next to a letter, it means multiplication. Now, let's compare constants and variables. A constant is a number that stays the same. For example, 7 is always 7. -3 is always -3. Its value does not change. A variable is a letter that can vary. That means it can represent different values depending on the situation. For example, x might be 2 in one question, but x might be 10 in another. So remember, constants stay fixed, but variables can change. Let's check your understanding. In the term -7y, which part is the coefficient? Is it number 1, y, number 2, 7, number 3, -7, number 4, the whole term? Pause the video and think carefully. Remember, the coefficient is the number multiplying the variable. Also remember, the sign matters. The correct answer is -7. In the term -7y, the variable is y. The coefficient is the number multiplying y, and that includes the negative sign. So the coefficient is not just 7, it is -7. This is a really important GCSE skill because missing the negative sign can change the meaning of the whole expression. Now let's look at expressions. An expression is a collection of terms. One helpful way to think about it is this. Terms are like individual words, and expressions are like phrases. For example, 3x plus 4y minus 2 is an expression. It has 3 terms, 3x, 4y, and -2. The crucial rule is that an expression does not have an equal sign. Once you add an equal sign, it becomes an equation. So 3x plus 4 is an expression, but 3x plus 4 equals 10 is an equation. Algebra has certain writing conventions. These are rules that help expressions look cleaner and easier to read. First, we usually do not write multiplication signs. So instead of writing 3 times a, we write 3a. Second, letters are usually written in alphabetical order. So instead of writing y times x, we write xy. Third, we do not usually write the coefficient one. So instead of writing 1x, we just write x. Even though the 1 is invisible, it is still there. The coefficient of x is 1. Algebra also has conventions for division and powers. When we divide in algebra, we often write it as a fraction. So instead of writing a divided by 4, we write it over 4. Now, let's look at powers. If a variable is multiplied by itself, we use index notation. For example, b times b is written as b squared. That little 2 tells us that b is being multiplied by itself twice. So b squared means b times b. Let's try a terminology matchup. You need to match each algebra item to the correct word. We have x and 4x plus 2. The possible answers are expression, coefficient, constant, variable. Pause the video and try matching them before we go through the answers. Let's check the answers. X is the variable because it is a letter that can represent a changing or unknown value. 2 is the constant because it is a fixed number. 4 is the coefficient because in 4, x plus 2, the 4 multiplies the variable x. And 4x plus 2 is the expression because it is made up of terms and does not have an equal sign. If you got those right, you are building a strong foundation for algebra. Now, we need to practice spotting terms. A really important rule is that the plus or minus sign belongs to the term that comes after it. For example, in 5x minus 3, the terms are 5x and -3. We do not say the terms are 5x and 3 because the minus sign belongs to the 3. Let's look at a few examples. 12ab is one term because everything is being multiplied together. A plus b plus c has 3 terms, a, b, and c. 4x squared minus 2, x plus 1 has 3 terms. 4x squared, -2x and 1. Always keep the sign with the term. Now let's think more deeply. In algebra, 1x is simply written as x. Why do you think mathematicians decided to make the 1 invisible? And could this cause confusion for students who are just starting algebra? pause the video and think about your answer. This is a useful question because algebra is not just about memorizing rules. It is also about understanding why those rules exist. You might have said that writing x instead of 1x makes expressions cleaner and quicker to write. This works because of the identity property of multiplication. Any number multiplied by 1 stays the same, so 1 times x is just x. However, this can cause confusion. Some students see x and think there is no coefficient, but there is a coefficient. It is just invisible. So remember, the coefficient of x is 1, even when we do not write it. Let's finish with a final challenge. Look at the expression 8k squared minus 3m plus 11. First, list every coefficient. The coefficients are 8 and negative 3, because these are the numbers multiplying the variables. Second, identify the constant. The constant is 11 because it is the number on its own. Third, how many terms are there? There are 3 terms: 8k squared, negative 3m, and 11. Finally, identify the variables. The variables are k and m. If you can identify coefficients, constants, variables, and terms in an expression like this, you are ready to move on to simplifying algebraic expressions. That's the end of today's lesson on algebraic foundations, terms, and expressions. You should now understand what variables, constants, coefficients, terms, and expressions are, and you should be able to spot them in algebraic expressions. Remember, algebra becomes much easier once you understand the language it uses. If this helped, please like the video, subscribe to Mind Tier Learning, and check out the next GCSE Maths lesson to keep building your confidence.